Hi, David.
Hey, good to see you again.
Good to see you. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. Today was a really big and really important first day, but I'm feeling very good about it.
Okay. So what's happened this morning is we've had opening statements, right, from both sides in the civil case against you from Planned Parenthood. And, like, just to give everyone a sort of sense, like, what do you think? What did you think about the morning, first of all, and then maybe go into... Sorry?
Phelim's here, by the way.
And Phelim's here back, by the way, and he's going to be given lots of instructions. So obviously this is the case against David for the undercover videos that he did, and basically the argument from Planned Parenthood's point of view is that, oh my God, like they threw the book at you, fraud, RICO, like they're mentioning RICO, which is obviously a statute that's obviously used in the case of like organised crime and stuff. Like, yeah. So apparently you're just the worst person ever, and they're suing you. They're civilly suing you, as well as the criminal case that's ongoing. You have this civil case. So what did you think of the morning?
Yeah, well, I think that what comes through really clearly, even just on the first day, is this lawsuit from Planned Parenthood. It's a retaliatory lawsuit, and it's basically a cover-up. This entire case is a cover-up that's meant to distract from the findings and the admissions from Planned Parenthood leadership that are documented on the undercover videos. And it's a cover-up of Planned Parenthood's crimes that they were involved in selling baby body parts for valuable consideration under the federal law, just vending human body parts from abortions like widgets on an assembly line. This is documented. It's documented on the videos. There's been extensive congressional investigations and criminal referrals done from it. But Planned Parenthood is trying to manipulate the legal system to distract from that, to cover it up, and they're doing it through this retaliatory lawsuit that is just attacking the whistleblower, attacking many whistleblowers, myself, other undercover investigators from Center for Medical Progress, suing the Center for Medical Progress itself as an organization. It's an attack on First Amendment civil rights, ultimately, not just on my civil rights, but on the civil rights of all Americans to investigate issues of great public concern and to publish and to consume information that's published about that.
So this morning what now? Phelim is saying something. Shout out there, Phelim. Anything you think of?
They admitted that they're not saying that the videos are wrong. That this was not about the videos.
In fact, I thought one of the things that I thought was, well, I want to hear what David thinks, but I thought one of the things I thought was surprising was that the one thing that they really don't want is the content of the videos to be discussed. And I think what's really clever on behalf of the defense team is that they constantly bring it back to the reason, because basically all of this case against David, the civil case against David, falls to pieces because of the fact that the reason that you did this in the first place was because you had foreknowledge of a violent felony that was happening to human beings, and that is your defense, right? Am I correct in that?
That's correct. We have a lot of defenses because there's a lot of ridiculous things that they're accusing us of, and we did nothing wrong. But one of the most incredible things and one of the most telling things, again, is that Planned Parenthood is suing us for almost everything, name it, whether it's fraud, trespass, improper video recording, breach of contract is in there, RICO is in there. The one thing that they're not suing us for is defamation or libel or slander. That is the one thing that they're not suing us for. They're not saying that we lied about them or that anything in the videos is untrue or inaccurate, that anything that I put in a press release about them is inaccurate. That's the one place they don't want to go to in this entire case, because they know that there's no way they could win that whatsoever.
So getting specific, who did we hear from this morning? Who was the first witness that we heard from this morning?
So there was only one witness that we've heard from so far in the case. That was Jenna Tosh, who is the CEO of Planned Parenthood of California Central Coast. And her affiliate actually is very interesting because they are one of the affiliates that had a contract with the company STEM Express to harvest and sell aborted baby body parts. They signed a contract with STEM Express in, I believe it was October of 2013. That contract is included in the House Select Investigative Panel's final report. They were to be paid $75 per body part under that contract. We learned today from the exhibits that were put up that Planned Parenthood California Central Coast does a little over 3,000 abortions every year. So you could imagine, even if every abortion just yielded one usable body part for STEM Express under that contract, that would be a significant payout to that Planned Parenthood affiliate. That would be the natural line of questioning to start asking this witness. Although it's a big open question whether the judge and whether Planned Parenthood will allow for it to go in that direction, because they're so concerned about opening up the door to talking about what was exposed on the videos, what was documented, what the results of the congressional investigations were. They're going to try to keep talking about how they feel defrauded that we didn't actually ever purchase body parts from them the way that STEM Express wanted to under that contract, but they don't want to talk about what they were actually doing with the real baby parts companies.
Was there anything specifically this morning that surprised you that came out this morning, something that you didn't expect, or was everything kind of exactly as you expected?
Yeah, I was frankly surprised by how kind of rote and anodyne Planned Parenthood's opening statement was this morning. They have a very well-known lawyer from Southern California, from Los Angeles, actually the former lawyer for the musical artist Prince. Did some really interesting work on his cases several years ago. But the presentation on behalf of Planned Parenthood this morning, it seemed like they were going through the motions. I didn't really feel or hear the fire in the belly or the bile in the throat necessarily to try and be able to swallow these really ludicrous accusations that they're making against citizen reporters and citizen journalists.
One moment I really thought was fabulous this morning was where they were trying to characterize you, make you look bad, and I thought this was I actually thought it was quite amusing where they described the ringleader. This is, by the way, here we go, the ringleader here. They were describing the ringleader, this awful person here who started, and don't you forget it, who basically, and I just thought this was funny, who's never had a real job, and then never had a full-time job. So it was quite funny, right? So this guy who I happen to know quite well, my dear friend David here that we're talking to, never had a real job, and has been, however, has been doing this kind of work since he was 15, and then they chronicled the fact with, working with Lila Rose and all of that. And I was thinking, yeah, that sounds like a bit of a full-time job to me. And by the way, obviously the case that we're attending here and that we're reporting on is obviously a case where we have David, who is an undercover investigator who did this incredible service to the country by exposing this incredible diabolical story. I actually think not alone have you had a full-time job, David, but I think you did a lot of overtime.
Definitely. I think I've had several full-time jobs over the past couple of years. I mean, even I joke now that I feel like my time is spent, half video producer or half journalist and half paralegal, because there's so much going on with getting ready for a trial like this. But before that, what I used to tell people is that what I really enjoyed about doing investigative journalism and doing undercover work is that you get to wear so many different hats. You get to, especially on a project like this, I got to be part scientist, part detective, part lawyer, part video producer, part editor, part director, part actor, all these different things, part activist, certainly. I think it's really silly, and their cultural bias is definitely showing, to try and say that it's not a real job, or that's working full time in pro-life advocacy and investigative journalism for 8 years, that's somehow not a real job or not significant. I mean, I think the significance is pretty evident to everybody to see, including in that courtroom. Otherwise, we wouldn't all be there in that courtroom if this wasn't a real job.
Exactly. And actually, one of the defense lawyers brought up the point that, the idea that this isn't a real job. Yeah, exactly. That, however, we all go to Sundance and watch, undercover videos made by PETA about cruelty towards animals. And I think they mentioned another couple of, the type of undercover work that's done routinely by journalists. And of course, they were bringing up this thing where they were criticizing you and the rest of the team for not telling people, oh, by the way, I'm about to ask you some really, really tough questions here, and that you should have really introduced yourself and said, I'm actually about to do this kind of thing. For the first time, in the history of an undercover investigation, you'd be doing this one thing that's never done. The whole idea of the undercover investigation is that the person doesn't know that they're being questioned in this way, and this is how the incredible information that's valuable to the public and valuable to obviously from a criminal point of view here, this information would never come to light if it wasn't for the undercover investigation. And I think your team, it looks like that they're obviously warming up to that. But as I said, we've just had one witness so far. We've had the opening statements. Anything else? Yeah.
One thing I liked in the opening statements was the lawyer, I think it was for Sandra Merritt, who talked about the "I want a Lamborghini" conversation. And at the end he said, this is not about damages.
Yeah, the lawyer at the end. Yeah, the lawyer at the end who was talking about Sandra Merritt's, that one of those particular conversations that had been taped where she had talked about the Lamborghini, said actually what this whole case is about is Planned Parenthood want you and Sandra to pay for their fleet of Lamborghinis. We thought that was a particularly.
It's not about damages, it's about damage control.
This is not about damage; it's about damage control.
Yeah, absolutely. Planned Parenthood wants to be able to sell body parts and peddle abortions on an industrial scale and be completely unaccountable to the public while receiving over $500 million in taxpayer funding every single year. And that's another theme that I would predict you're gonna hear a lot come up as sort of a meta theme or kind of a subtext to the testimony, even of Planned Parenthood's own witnesses that they're putting on, is they believe that they're entitled to be completely unaccountable to the public. And I think that's ridiculous for the medical profession. First of all, I mean, doctors are a highly regulated sector of service that is serving the public and should be accountable to the public. Period. But on top of that, Planned Parenthood is funded over $500 million by taxpayers every single year. This is a very public organization.
We saw a little bit of that when Miss Tosh was being interviewed about the finances of the Planned Parenthood of the Central Coast of California. Two things that struck me, David, and we're gonna wrap this up in a minute. But two things that struck me that I thought you would find that were interesting was the repetition. I smiled to myself, and I was saying that Phelim over and over again because obviously we made the Gosnell film. Was the number of times lawyers said this is not a case about abortion. I actually found that amazing. They said that repeatedly. Said that this is not a case about abortion, which I thought was funny. The other thing that struck me and I'm sure this has occurred to you as well, and it really occurred to me sitting there looking at the jury, of people, different ages, different ethnicities, quite a lot of men actually. I thought it was more men than women or whatever. I need to break them all down and we'll talk more about the jury another day. But one thing that struck me, and I'm sure you are aware of this, is, oh my God, they're getting an education in the same way that the Gosnell jurors got an education. That they would, they're just regular people who were called to jury service, had no idea that this was, what was about to happen. And they're hearing things today, and you have to imagine it must be extraordinary for them to have heard the things they heard. And I noticed actually that the judge stopped a number of times, every time it kind of went that direction of describing exactly what was said on these tapes. And obviously I think over the next weeks we're going to be seeing a lot of those tapes played in court. I hope so, because they'll be on the record. But every time that happened, I think the judge was getting nervous and didn't want to go there. And just an observation, what do you think for the jury hearing this stuff for the first time?
Definitely. I think that the entire country throughout the course of this trial is going to get a big education in Planned Parenthood's abortion programs and Planned Parenthood's fetal tissue and organ harvesting and selling programs. I think that the entire country is going to learn a lot from the testimony that's going to come to light under oath in this case for the next month.
Yeah. And I think that's great. And we're delighted to be here, David, and to report on this and to report on this incredible journey that you've been on. We admire you. You're a remarkable young man. And yeah, I think it was a great first day, and I think it's going to be, as I said, it's going to be great to get all of this information on the record, all these tapes out on the record, and as you say, the jury, along with the rest of the country, getting this incredible education. So let's see what the next weeks bring. Thanks so much, David.
Definitely. Thank you.